Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Analyst Café hosted by the IIBA Colombo Chapter. And today we are going to have a very exciting topic, actually a very trending topic to talk about. And we have an expert as well here joining us to join the conversation. So today we are all things GenAI or generative AI, and who better to talk about than an expert who are living in GenAI work in their day-to-day work life. So we have here with us Dr. Lahiru Ariyasinghe, Associate Architect of Data Science at Asia Digital Labs. He has been working with GenAI for the past couple of years, I think, and we have projects that are going on as well that are including GenAI. So Dr. Lahiru, welcome to the Analyst Cafe. So maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit better than myself, I guess.
Yeah, so thank you, Malsha. Thank you for having me today. I've been working on basically data science and AI for the past 5 to 6 years. I've been training neural networks for the last about 3-4 years, and when the Gen AI boom came up, obviously 2022 end, then I was focusing on Gen AI for about now almost 1.5 years. So previously I was in computer systems, had my PhD in computer science from University of Otago, New Zealand, and I worked in several countries, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, and I've been both in academia and industry. Interchangeably, I've done lecturing, and then research fellow, research engineer, founded some tech startups when I was back in New Zealand. And so my main interests were nowadays on data science, Gen AI, particularly in prompt engineering angle, and also security aspect of Gen AI. For the past year at ADL, we've been working on multiple commercial projects in Gen AI. So happy to share my thoughts, experiences, and opinions.
So I think when it was a great introduction, Dr. Lahiru. I think it just adds to your experience when you explain all these things. So Gen AI, when we hear the word Gen AI, I think the first word that comes to most of mind is ChatGPT, right? Or Gemini, other things. But ChatGPT has been the trendsetter. It sort of what boomed this trend, and everybody's using it these days. Some might not understand what it is. So if you can explain to the audience what Gen AI is, and why is there such a hype behind it? Why is it a hype? Why is it a trend these days?
Yeah, so first of all, Gen AI is a branch of AI where we can create new content, fresh content. So obviously this content can be text, it can be audio, it can be video, it can be images. So let's say for someone who's tracking these developments within the deep learning area, neural networks area, maybe an AI professor or a data scientist or a machine learning engineer, these developments they are not that much surprising, because if you are tracking how these neural network architectures developed, and with the transform architecture, with the attention mechanisms, how we came to this Gen AI era is not that surprising. But for someone who is coming from the general community, this is kind of, as you said, this is kind of a hype. This is kind of a really surprising, marvelous thing in AI. So I think primarily that is because this aspect of generating new things, right? So ChatGPT is kind of a chatbot introduced by OpenAI. So OpenAI decided to make it available for the general consumer. I think late 2022, around November 2022, they announced ChatGPT. So then as soon as we experience ChatGPT, this is kind of a tool, this is kind of a magical robot kind of thing, answering all our questions. So previously we were, like doing Google searches, trying to find answers. Now straight away we have this thing, like a human-like thing talking to us. And that is that side of generating text. And the other sides, as we see now, there are solutions generating images straight away. Like basically we can generate what we want technically, and also for the video aspect as well. So this technology is becoming a hype for most of us within the general community because of this, in my opinion, because of this generating aspect compared to the intuition we had regarding AI in early days.
Yes, I think being millennials ourselves, watching all these TV series and movies, and all these AIs that can answer anything at a once you say this, I think that's like dreams come true, right? If you
exactly. So this is kind of the dream come true. So that is why I think, in my opinion, this is kind of the hype. But even if you look into the like a technological point of view, there is also a remarkable achievement, the transform architecture, which is behind all these generative AI models. So, but as I said, for someone who was tracking these research level development closely, this may not be a very surprising thing. But for the majority of the community, because of this overnight kind of unveiling of ChatGPT and related tools, this is kind of the hype these days. So so that is my take on why this is becoming a hype within the general community.
Do you think that hype will go down as we sort of saturate into it? I mean, more and more users are using GenAI now, and more and more. I mean, we are using ChatGPT. We've seen errors that ChatGPT can get hallucinations and everything. But still, I mean, it's 2 years later now, but still it's in top of their game, sort of. Do you really think the hype will go down after a while? I mean, with a lot of bitcoins and all those things as well before. So do you think?
So in my opinion, I think it's obviously this is an arguable point. So I think the industry R&D is pushing the needle towards the horizon. I think GenAI is unlikely to become this bubble compared to the previous, the technologies we had. Because it's as you said, there are challenges, there are issues, there are certain errors. We call them hallucinations. But still the R&D and the technological forefront is moving so fast, and a lot of R&D is happening, a lot of investments are happening. So I think this time within AI, it should be able to have some actual ongoing long-lasting impact with GenAI. And personally, in my opinion, now this is we call artificial generative AI, and this is slowly closing to something we called artificial general AI. So in terms of general AI, that means we are very much closing to the inner workings of the brain, kind of actual thinking. Now right now, when ChatGPT is giving an answer, it's not necessarily thinking whether this answer will hurt the person. There's no that emotional factor. But I mean, in a way, you can argue ChatGPT is not giving any harmful answers or something, but that is still mechanical kind of thing. But I think this artificial generative AI, with this kind of efforts, investments, R&D is coming into the the arena, I think it's closely becoming towards AGI, artificial general intelligence. So in my opinion, although we see it as kind of a hype these days, I think it will materialize to a certain level, because the stakeholders are going to understand what are the actual capabilities of GenAI. And as you said, they will understand, all the users will understand, yes, there are certain limitations, there are hallucinations, but I think there will be a solid foundation, and I don't think it will like become a bubble and go down. There can be some sort of a like a saturation kind of thing, but I think it's here to stay, and change how we look at AI, and basically changing the lifestyles.
Yes, I think anyway the arrival of GenAI for the general mass sort of made them aware that what you see as science fiction is no longer science fiction.
Yeah.
That you can actually go beyond that, go into that artificial consciousness thing, go towards that. I think that's what people are working towards as well. Now, at the level generative AI is in right now.
Yeah.
Now, people use it in their day-to-day business, right? Sometimes it can be to write an email, but it can be for something bigger, much bigger than that. So what are the impacts on the day-to-day business, whether it's in a service company, it can be telcos, or it can be manufacturing companies. So, if you look at basic businesses, or, general businesses that we have, what kind of impact does GenAI have on them?
Yeah, so if you think about generative AI, now as you said, like if we forget that like magical part, like very surprising generating things, that part, fundamental usage of GenAI at this point is GenAI is a tool where you can easily streamline and automate your certain tasks, your workflows, your processes. So enterprises can use GenAI effectively in places where they can try to automate their business processes, especially processes involving NLP, natural language processing, primarily. So for example, let's say, as you mentioned, obviously for organizations in general, for marketing teams, for sales teams, for BD teams, like obviously we have seen the capabilities of GenAI. They can create proposals, presentation formats, logos, marketing materials, social media content, all these things very easily. Yes, there are issues, limitations, but always when we use these tools, users can get a head start. So if I want to generate a logo, I don't want to do it from the scratch. I can easily ask DALL-E to like DALL-E, or even Stable Diffusion, like a tool like Midjourney. I can ask to generate a sample logo, then I can work on that logo from that point onwards. So it's like basically streamlining and automating my particular task. So I think in that aspect, enterprises can use GenAI to most of their workflows to automate and streamline. So even if you look into the software organizations, like both you and me are coming from that world, so software organizations definitely can use the support of GenAI for coding, like automated code generation, of course test case generation, documentation generation, all these things. We can basically try to automate and streamline our processes. Instead of maybe like we are writing our documentation from the scratch, we can get the support of ChatGPT to get these basic formats. And I think also for an organization, also from the customer's point of view, they can use these chatbots to again automate the customer interactions and enrich customer experiences, give some personalized experience for customers via chatting use cases. So likewise there are a lot of use cases coming up in different areas, as you said, like telcos, engineering organizations, education, especially healthcare. I've been following the healthcare track a lot with GenAI and BFSI, the fintech side. All these things, GenAI can be really useful to automate and streamline certain business processes, so that actual users or the stakeholders can focus on more effective tasks. I think that is how we should look at GenAI as a tool for our ecosystem, enterprise ecosystem.
Right. So I guess like the intelligent automation aspect comes via
exactly, yeah,
the generative AI into business processes. Now, another thing that I think people in our industry are more aware about these days are, can GenAI replace them? I think the introduction of David, the AI software engineer, sort of created that buzz as well, right? So generative AI is advanced, of course, no question about it. But so will it go? I mean, I guess again, these opinions are very personal. I guess. I mean, it depends on who.
Sure.
But would this GenAI is already bringing in new career paths like prompt engineers and things like that.
Exactly.
So while doing that, would traditional, IT or traditional titles that we have, like software engineers, QA engineers, business analysts, those kind of things, would that be replaced? Or I think that's a question some people are worried about or people are concerned about, in a sense.
Yeah. So as you said, tools like Devin, Devika, the open source versions. So all these tools trying to automate the entire SDLC most of the time. So if you look into tools like Devika and Devin, you just need to give the requirement or like the BRD, and then it will like generate everything for you, your final repository that you can deploy in your production pipeline, including all the documentations. So and the research is also happening, as you mentioned, to reduce these hallucinations and errors. So the technological advancements are happening, but I think that the question you raised, like whether this technology, these features are going to replace the traditional software engineer, BA, QA, and those stuff. I think it would be partly yes, in my opinion, because yes, today the technology is still at an early stage. But if we look into the rate that it's getting developed and how much like investments is pouring in from Silicon Valley side for a lot of startups in GenAI, so I think at some point, if you look into the next 8 to 10 years, I would say there is a chance the traditional job roles is going to change. So but right now, if let's say if we take this coding aspect, like the programming thing, like generating code via GenAI instead of an actual human software engineer. So the task is, I was checking Devika tool, like last week I was checking. So it's generating the whole thing. It's generating the final repository, including everything. So I can directly, there is the chance for me to directly deploy. But still, as a developer for about a decade, so my doubt is, I still have this doubt whether this code is correct. Can I straight away put it to the production pipeline? That is the doubt most of the software engineers are having. Same for QA engineers, BAs, and even architects, same case. So the challenge right now is whether the content created by AI is something like production ready, real world ready. They are kind of at the prototype level, or let's say the beta levels. Things are happening. It's generating, the code is there. But I have this doubt. So what is happening is, if I'm a software engineer, there is a code generated by AI, then I am going back to the code again and again and checking whether it's correct and going through all the source codes. That is not going to work, because then we are not harnessing that automation aspect of GenAI. I think that this is partly a technological problem, as well as the other part is kind of a psychological and ethical aspect. So my point is, when the technological advancement is happening, we will come to a certain level, certain point. Okay, as a project manager or a software engineer, I would say, okay, that's fine. The code is, I'm now confident. The code is fine. It's going. So I think we will come to that point where we can trust AI to a certain degree compared to today. So if that is going to happen with the technological advancements, I think the traditional job roles are going to change drastically. They will change, I think.
Yes, agreed on that with you as well. Now, since we moved on to the software development lifecycle aspect of the conversation, so if we just go to a place where you're working in a GenAI project, so not using GenAI,
exactly,
within a GenAI project, and being a business analyst and being the IIBA Colombo Chapter, I think we are interested to know the role that a BA would play. So the thing is now a BA might not go as a business analyst term per se, but there will always be someone playing that kind of role. So I want to know what kind of role does a business analyst have? I understand working with large language models, it's not easy. It's a very different way of working. It's not a traditional software development project. What would a BA do there, or the person playing the BA role play there?
I think, Malsha, so two things we need to clear. One is like if you look into a traditional like a machine learning, deep learning, data science project, within a project like that for a BA, obviously we have the requirements understanding phase, and we have a phase called data acquisition and understanding, and maybe we all know like in a data science project, data scientists, they are doing something called modeling. They always say we are training the models, we are fine-tuning the models, we are doing, before that we are even preparing the data sets, so we call it feature engineering. All these things happened during like those days in traditional machine learning, traditional supervised learning, deep learning projects, data science projects. But one key aspect that every BA should understand in a GenAI project, in GenAI we have something called foundation models. The foundation model is not something, I mean, it unveiled with the concept of GenAI. Foundation models were there. So the idea of foundation models is we are having a pre-trained model. So compared to a previous data science, like a traditional data science project, there's no something called training. Not always, like there can be small situations, but largely training process is not there. It's not going to be there. And the actual modeling process is not going to be there. So the data scientist role is changing. So that is something that technically, then the BA will know in a GenAI project, your technical team is not performing the traditional tasks that they did in a traditional machine learning or data science project. That's the one key difference, because we are not doing something called like too much training. We are not going to do, like something called hyperparameter tuning the models, training the models. Like sometimes when I was doing data science projects, like in 2019, we were training deep learning models for days. So then our BA knows like, okay, still the model is training. But in a GenAI project, there is no such thing called like lengthy training. There are foundation models, you can use them straight away. If I get an example, let's say you are developing a vehicle detection software. That's a project. So previously, your technical team, as a BA, you are involving with them. Your technical team is, gathering a large amount of data sets. Then you will be involved there in, requirements gathering, requirement understand, data acquisition phases, and they will, annotate these images, label them basically, and they will train them. Like they will say they will do something called training. They are modeling. They are developing a machine learning model from the scratch to identify different vehicles. But within the GenAI era, you don't really need to do that. You have a foundation model straight away, you can get it. This foundation model can already detect, let's say, cars, vans, buses, and trucks. So foundation model can do certain things straight away. So then your technical team is maybe doing some sort of a small fine tuning compared to that lengthy technical process. So that technical change, I think every BA should understand what sort of technicality is going to change in a GenAI project compared to a traditional data science project that we did like 2-3 years back. So that is a key change, I think, and maybe that technical change will impact your business understanding phase, your requirements gathering phase, because you don't need to hunt for very large data sets. So and data, like data cleaning, feature engineering, all these things may not happen like regularly. There will be examples for very customized situations, but largely your technical team is dealing something called foundation model. So that's there. Your technical team can straight away start on the other developments, like here the data science part or the machine learning modeling training part is largely eliminated. So that is a key change that we can observe in pure GenAI related projects, if it is a chatbot, if it is a vehicle detection solution, as I mentioned. So we have this foundation model, so that is going to change this whole, the life cycle. So then I think with that technical change, how BA should interact with the technical team and how the BA should come across in different phases of the life cycle will also change and impact it. So that is something I wanted to highlight actually.
Yes, so I guess in this kind of projects, the BA will have to be a little bit more technical as well if they're not already. So they'll have to be
exactly.
existing models that have been trained, so support the team in that. And one of the main things that we do is being the bridge between the client and the tech team, right? So being that middleman would need some kind of understanding on already available models and the costings and pricing related to that, to make sure that they understand this is what's going to happen, this is what might it cost you, all those things as well. And also
exactly.
Throughout the life cycle, I guess our contribution might be a little bit more different to how a traditional project might be. So supporting whether the model training, if it requires to happen, it might happen, but the way it works, as you said, might differ to a traditional project. Now, one thing that I personally am interested in when it comes to any of the automations, since I'm also in the automation, the impact that anything has on these privacy requirements, data privacy and regulations. Now, each and every country has their own privacy requirement. We have a PDPA, there's GDPR for the European Union. Now, GenAI, how does it work within these regulations? Now, I know the ChatGPT free version have this disclaimer, right, saying, don't put any sensitive data. This is whatever you put is going to be used. Now, that is because it's publicly available. Now, if you're using GenAI or even OpenAI APIs in a project, obviously it's hosted somewhere else. And how does the data privacy regulations and all this data works, provided that you're using personal identifiable information in the solution, and most companies do that. So if you're using a chatbot, let's say, and it's for a telco domain, or it's for a service company, you are going to have to ask their names or their ID or their receipt number, whatever, right? If it is going to be this front-facing chatbot, and obviously going to have a lot of private personal information there. So how does this using this information and then using and the regulations that are available within each of these geographies work? Do you want? Can you?
So I think for this data privacy and governance angle in GenAI, we have two aspects primarily. One is the technical aspect or the engineering aspect. The other one is the ethical angle. So as you already mentioned, we have certain challenges in terms of security, privacy with the rise of GenAI. Now let's say we all know like deepfakes. Deepfakes are created using the GenAI tools and technologies. So deepfakes is becoming a real issue within the context of privacy and governance. There is R&D happening to detect these deepfakes, but the challenge is when the generative domain is improving rapidly, it's really becoming hard to detect. So and obviously this misinformation, spreading of misinformation is also there. So I think for the developer community, from the technological angle, one aspect is when they are developing these models, like developing these foundation models I mentioned earlier in GenAI, we saw the ethical angle is always the data set they use. We should try to remove PII data as much as we can, and also proprietary data, and also some sensitive data. All these things we should eliminate. And the next thing is, as the developer community of GenAI, we should try to make the details of your model available to the rest of the wider community as much as we can, given certain commercial bindings, but we should try to do that as much as we can. So then the model is kind of not a black box anymore for the rest of the developer. Now when we were trying, as you said, like OpenAI's GPT for our R&D track at ATL, we also encountered certain like anomalies behaviors, and there was a research happened like at Stanford, indicating certain anomaly behaviors at GPT-3 and 4. So that is because like those are proprietary models. We really can't see what is undergoing. So that is for the technical community. Like in terms of foundation model development, we should carefully select the dataset, and we should try to expose at least how the inner workings happen to the rest of the community. And for the other side, as you mentioned, if we are using a GenAI solution within an organization, let's say ChatGPT, the famous example. So ChatGPT, as we know, it's a free tool at the moment. There is a paid version, ChatGPT Plus, but most of the people are using the free version. So there is always the risk that if you are using ChatGPT for your enterprise ecosystem, within your enterprise ecosystem, there's always a chance you are exposing your company's sensitive information, knowingly or unknowingly, to the OpenAI systems. So because of all these models like the OpenAI GPT, or Azure, the AWS Bedrock models, or GCP is also providing certain GenAI models. If we are using GenAI models or GenAI services, why are these large cloud hyperscalers, cloud providers? They provide certain assurances in terms of data usage and privacy policies, but still, what I have observed personally is still certain enterprise clients are reluctant to use these cloud services, because largely these cloud services are based on their data centers. The models are based on their data centers. So irrespective to certain like data usage and governance policies in place, there is always a chance, let's say an organization using, let's say, OpenAI via Azure, there is always a chance you are sending your information to the OpenAI GPT models hosted in the US, in their data centers, or in Europe, it can be. So with all these context, the geopolitical issues and all these context, organizations like large enterprise players are still reluctant to go to that level, because there is always this privacy and governance issue.
So, yes, I think mostly because the regulatory, sometimes some certain regulations explicitly say that you cannot move beyond the boundary of your country or things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Elsewhere, you're breaching the regulation and you're getting fined or even worse. So
yeah, exactly. So that is the challenge actually. So some organizations have they have controlled the usage of ChatGPT like tools. They are strictly controlling these certain GenAI tools, and that is why the wider enterprise ecosystem still reluctant to adapt all these GenAI solutions. But there is always this silver line. Now, as you mentioned, if you are using GPT 3.5 Turbo, GPT-4, all these large language models, you will have to use a cloud service provider to get this service. But if you are an enterprise really concerned about this angle, where data privacy and governance angle, you can always look into SLMs, small language models. So smaller models, you can easily run them in your own infrastructure compared to a larger model. So I have seen the trend. Most of the organizations, large enterprise players, are exploring the feasibility of using small language models compared to large language models for their enterprise ecosystem, within their enterprise ecosystem. So that small language models are obviously small, it's easy to run in a local infrastructure. You don't really need that large computing power of a cloud service provider. And small language models are easily, you can customize them to a certain downstream task compared to LLM. LLMs are more broader and they can operate in a wider context. SLMs can't do that, but SLMs are ideal if you are an enterprise client looking for data privacy and governance aspect, as well as looking to harness the GenAI capabilities, specifically in terms of the language models angle. because if you are having your language model or your GenAI solution on-prem, if the governance and privacy is very critical for you as an enterprise, so SLMs will do the job largely compared to you are going to a cloud provider and getting this service as a native service from a cloud. So I think that is an angle the whole industry and academia is exploring these days, the small language models angle, and I think it's rising widely. Microsoft and Meta, and I think Google also pushing into this small language model angle widely. So yeah, so the data privacy and governance, that is something we can tackle from the engineering angle, but as well as that is something we can tackle from the ethics angle as well.
Yes, so I think this entire conversation that we've been having, Dr. Lahiru, have been very enlightening, I guess, in most aspects. So you touched upon a lot of technical sides of it as well, the downside of GenAI, as well as why it keeps rising. So I really want to say thank you so much for giving us your time and giving us your time and your knowledge regarding GenAI. And it was truly an enlightening session, as I said before, because we got to learn what's the hype is about, and also looking into why it still is improving and why it should be continuously improved to, make sure that all these concerns that people are having and all these concerns that we are having is resolved. And especially in this day and age where data is the most, valuable item, this regulations and data privacy has to be looked into more and more as well. And it's very happy to hear that there are teams and R&D teams working on that as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Lahiru, for joining us. And it was a wonderful session. And thank you for listening as well for us for the last few minutes. And we will see you in the next Analyst Cafe episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Malsha. Thank you, IIBA Colombo Chapter, for having me. Thank you.